What's up, dudes and dudettes? My name's Scythe, and today we're going to be taking a first look at Scrap Mechanic. This game is absolutely awesome. I very much like it, and I feel like the game itself, almost everything is kind of like a puzzle. It's a mechanical tinkering type of game, I guess I would say, that's very similar to the vein of Space Engineers, Medieval Engineers, and stuff like that, as well as a little bit of Besieged thrown in, even though there's not really any enemies or anything right now. This game was recently released on Steam, and I mean, at the moment, even though it's early access, besides a few stability issues and a couple crashes, which, I mean, is very standard for early access, this game actually does a very good job staying very, very tight, and all of the mechanics seem to already be in place for the most part, so I'm very excited to see how far this game develops. Now, before we actually load into my own personal world that I already have created, I just wanted to show you some of the options here at the beginning. You can actually click character, and you can either be this little guy, or you swap to a girl. That's pretty much all that they have right now. There's not really any customization. If you click on new game, you can only have creative mode, which means that there must be another mode coming later on. You can actually choose whether it's terrain or flat, whether the world is private. You can change the name, and then in the settings too, you can set the amount of players, thrusters, gas engines, controllers, and stuff like that. I guess ultimately so that the game doesn't like end up crashing, because of course this is a very memory intensive game. If anyone's ever played like the old Tony Hawk games or even the recent Fallout 4, you know that as you're building stuff, it's taking more and more of the game's memory, and thus if you end up having way too much stuff and your computer can't really handle it, the game will probably just end up crashing. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any manual way of saving or loading your file. I mean, well, there is manual loading, but you can't really load before you make a game-breaking mistake. So if you end up running into problems, you're probably going to be at a slow frame rate chugging away while you're trying to clear the issue. But anyway, let's just load into my world right now. Sorry it took me so long to get past the title screen. Usually my own rule of thumb is I try to keep that at least under a minute, but I felt that some of the stuff on the title screen did actually need to be explained. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with my frame rate right now, but I guess there must be some stuff around that's taking a bit of memory, even though I was actually on this earlier, no problem. Now, as you can see right here, I've actually got a few vehicles already set up, but I'm gonna get into those in a minute, because first I just want to show you the basic mechanics. You press I and you can go to your menu, and you just get to choose out of all the items that they have right now. Some of these are just for fun, while all of the mechanical features are pretty much all at the top. Now, here's another thing too, is you hover over all these bricks and just the items in general, you're gonna notice that it says medium weight. That's because this game is actually that complex, where the weight does play a difference with a vehicle and its suspension, as well as how fast it's going to go, etc., etc. And over here, you're going to notice the point of interest tools. That is your sledgehammer, which can knock physics objects, but you're not really going to run into anything where you're going to need that particularly. The lift, which is actually very, very cool, and then the connection tool. Now, this thing, if you've played Starbound and even Minecraft, this thing is very much kind of like, I guess, a cross between Redstone as well as the electric outlets that they do have in StarCraft, where you end up connecting one sequence to another. So I'll actually just hover over that right now just to kind of give you an idea. Like, you can see all the skeletal structures of everything that I have constructed right here, so it's all moving and everything. This game can end up being very, very complex, and you can actually end up making some absolutely amazing things. I myself am not particularly good at it, I will admit, so it's taking me quite a steep learning curve. But let's actually just construct a very basic vehicle right here, just so I can kind of give you all an idea. So here's the lift, which you can actually hop on. Oh, and if you hold Alt and then use the right mouse, the middle mouse button, I should say, you can zoom your camera in and out. And if you use up and down on the like arrow keys on your keyboard, you can actually lift and lower the lift. And it's very, very cool, man. Very, very intuitive, the way that this game controls, and even its explanation of stuff. Like, I'm not normally good at these kinds of things, but I do pretty okay, if I do say so. And that just right there says that this is a good system. So you're gonna see right here, as we're placing down blocks, you can build onto the ground, but of course then it's going to be static. Otherwise, anything that you build on the lift right here, you can actually lift and drop down. And it's kind of cool where even if we actually get rid of the lift, you can see that this thing is still coded as a creation or a vehicle, so you can actually, while using your lift, click on it, and then you click the ground again, and now it's actually on the lift, no problem. One thing that I do want to mention, the only thing that I can see as a conceivable problem with the game right now is they don't really have an undo button. So you can actually, like, very easily accidentally end up destroying stuff. And it can be a little bit of a problem, in all honesty. Whoops, I should actually get rid of that one right there. You can see there, as soon as that item deattached, now this is a physics object and it is not connected to our vehicle. Same thing's gonna happen right here. But for the sake of right now, you can actually just mess with it all yourself, but I'm just gonna construct a very basic vehicle. So this is a rotation axis. I don't know if that's what it's actually called. A bearing, that's what they call them. Okay, so these, like right now, I'm actually putting these down because we're gonna use those for our basic steering. And then as I move the spots right here, you can see that I'm going to put some more bearings on it. And this is so that our wheels can kind of turn. That's another thing too, is this game is also very much like, if you're into Gary's mod and stuff like that, you're gonna be right at home with the customization. And the fact that you can actually build stuff so quick and so easy this early in development is just absolutely astronomical, man. Like, seriously, you should seriously check out the Steam trailers and stuff like that they actually have, because they've got some crazy inventions that even I am still scratching my head over how they actually did some of that stuff. So we can actually put our chair on it, and now it is going to be a functional type of vehicle. You can put your engine on it as well. There is also an electrical engine, but for right now we're just going to use the standard one. If we actually click and connect with our connection tool, you can see that we are now attaching the engine to each of the individual tires, meaning that we just made this beast four-wheel drive. And you can see the rotation as well. Very easy, very intuitive to actually see. As soon as you end up clicking it, like, maybe it would be kind of cool if the game would eventually acknowledge the direction that your wheels are supposed to go based on the driver's seat or something, but you can easily just right click and turn it so that these wheels are rotating the proper direction rather than going the opposite, so we would end up spinning around in circles. Now, right now, if we actually go into the engine, if we put the power on, hey, is it working? That's kind of weird that it's not really working, dude. Okay, so anyway, normally what's supposed to happen is you can actually have the engine on its own powering the vehicle, and then the car can actually just drive away, no problem. But anyway, for our driver's seat right here, you're gonna see we're gonna connect it to the steering. Now, the steering is a little bit weird, where you're always gonna have to have the left axis over top. Like, it always has to overlay and be going clockwise in order to have proper steering. And then, of course, we connect the chair to the engine itself. And now that the chair is connected to the engine, W is now connected to our speed. So we can actually crank this thing up without our car driving away on us. And it's quite a learning curve, but it's also a lot of fun. Oh, that's why our car didn't drive away. Because I still had it connected to that thing, because now it is actually physically in the world. And now if we didn't have the seat attached to the engine and we put the power up, it would just totally drive away. So you can see right now we've got our steering and we've got our driving. So wow, we got a little too much power in this bad boy though. But don't worry, if you ever end up flipping your vehicle over, you can always just use, oh, where is it? I moved it away. You can always just use your lift again to plop it down, lift it up, get it out of the way, and then you're back on the ground. It's a lot of fun trying to mess with and find the physics of this game. I find that things work out very, very well. So we're actually going to continue and skip ahead here to some of the other things that I constructed. This was my first vehicle I made, very, very long. And I also put, I love that weird physics of your character. It's so goofy. And I put weird wings on the side. This is essentially the same as that other vehicle, but I put the wings on the side because it kept falling over. But otherwise, this one kind of handles okay. You can see here that I actually have suspension, but this is not how the suspension works. It doesn't bend or anything like that sideways. It actually bends up and down. So you can see over here, this was my third vehicle, and this one is a little bit more under control, where it has proper suspension on the front tires, a nice big one in the back, and it's pretty cool, man. Like, I really do enjoy just messing around with this engine and stuff. So the suspension, as you can see, is going to prevent us from crashing into stuff and, well, flipping over, but also being on a triple wheel, we are still going to fall over quite a bit. Then there was this vehicle that I was messing around with, and as you can see, I actually have a button right here, which we'll get into all of that in a minute because I got a little bit of a home base up on the mountain, but I wanted to show you the vehicles first. So I actually have a door set up and a little staircase that comes out. And then, of course, I can just jump right on. Get up there. And very, very elegantly, I can reach and hit my switch. We also have a passenger seat, and this vehicle honestly operates very, very well, if I do say so. Like, I just find that this one seems to be a lot more stable than most of the others because I have a better understanding of how it's all designed and stuff. Not to mention the fact that this thing is so heavy keeps the gravity, like the center of gravity, down like quite a bit. There is also thrusters, but I don't really use those as much yet because I'm still learning quite a bit. And then this vehicle right here was inspired by one of the videos that I saw on Steam where they actually had one vehicle drive into another one. And of course I use my doors right here. The reason that I have this switch right here is unfortunately it doesn't seem like you can connect a connector to, like, you can't really wire it to two separate buttons, so we can't have one on the inside and one on the outside. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't really know how. So this, of course, is the Beast vehicle. Absolutely gigantic. Also, I noticed in some of the Steam videos that for some reason they have different colored blocks and stuff like that than we actually have on us right now, which is kind of weird. So this right here, this platform, yes, it does work. I have gotten my vehicle into the other vehicle right here, but unfortunately, it seems like that takes, like, even this platform being down like that seems to drain the frame rate quite a bit. So I think this game has a very hard time calculating vehicles being in a static position while also being slightly moved over and stuff, you know? It's kind of weird. So we're actually gonna, well, I guess I'll show you these things right here. No, you know what? We're going to cut and we're going to actually climb up onto the top of my hill right here. And then we'll get down here so I can show you a little bit of other complex things that I've been messing with. So up here is my house, which I am quite proud of. I also like my little windmill. It kind of makes a little bit of noise, so it might end up getting annoying, but I don't know if I have the game volume up that much. This is a very basic door. This is one of the easiest things that you can actually build, and they actually show you how to do this in the Steam video. So this was the first thing that I built, where we press this button, and it's going to turn a bearing right there and a bearing down at the door. I'll show you how to do this in a minute, but it actually... so beautiful. I love it, seriously. And then I got a little radio, so we can turn on some music. Hang out here. Hello, rubber ducky. Scrubber ducky, because that's what I am at this game, is a noob. So if we close the door right here, also this platform that we're standing on right now, I did actually construct just by doing stuff like this. It's actually very, very easy to build. You don't need to worry about, like, you know, trying to build one block at a time, because you can actually drag out quite a bit. And then if you're trying to, like, let's say we want to do something like that, and then we want to rotate this with Q, and then you can see that we can easily swap it like that, easily just make a straight line and up and across like that. And then when you're deleting stuff, it's a little bit tedious, but you right click, drag, and I can't really explain it. You kind of just have to mess with it yourself, but you're gonna see, like, we didn't really delete everything right there. We only deleted some stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit strange. So for the sake of today, I'm gonna delete my door. I'm gonna get rid of this just so I can show you all how this actually works. So we put a bearing right down here, and then we put another bearing right up here. So of course you have to connect your original block to the bearing, because otherwise if we do something like this or connect it to the wall, it actually is not letting me click and drag down onto the bearing, only around it. So even if you do something like this, and then we click this other block right here, now this block right here, as far as I know with the physics, is actually completely separate from this one, and this will be the only rotation block, right? Oh, never mind, it actually connected properly. Okay. So that's another thing too that I actually really like about this is if you click on, yeah, that's right, okay. So if you click on this wood block and we drag this out, we're actually adding onto this wood block. Now, if we click on the cement on the ground right there and then drag it over to the wood block, now it's actually not connected. because we dragged it onto the ground, because whatever block that you are actually clicked to does make a difference. So we're just gonna throw this together right here. I was about to click on the metal right there, and that was gonna mess things up. And then of course you just set up your wiring tool. So you set up the switch or button to the connector, I think that's what it's called, right? Controller, that's it, okay. And then you change the controller to move the axis. And of course, just right-clicking it can easily change its direction, but otherwise, if you press E on it, you can go inside it. And as you see right here, we actually have two button commands right now. This one is the one that was controlling the door. This one down here is the one that controlled the arm. And this system is actually very intuitive, very, very easy to control, where you can actually click and drag this for its speed down here. And then also, this is what I absolutely love about it, because otherwise things get a little bit difficult when it comes to setting up events as a clock in most other games. This one, as you can see right here, we have the second event is going to take up the first slot. That means that this event is going to play first, and then once this event is finished, the number one event, or the second event, right here in the second slot, is going to also rotate 90 degrees. So we have this one minus 90 degrees, and this one rotating 90 degrees. Now, that is because the first rotation is the thing that's blocking the door, like the big arm that's blocking it. So right now we actually have, like, you're gonna see right here, the arm rotates first and then it waits and then opens the door, because otherwise you can run into problems where, you know, like maybe the switch would come down first and it wouldn't really work out. Like if we swap these over right here so they're both gonna interact with each other, let's just change that. Now they're both gonna be doing stuff at the same time, and you're gonna kind of run into mistakes, right? So it's very, very cool, very, very easy to get the hang of. Very, very difficult to master though, because they have some crazy, secret, beautiful switches and stuff. Now, over here I was trying to construct an elevator, and I kind of had one that worked with rockets. My first attempt though didn't quite work because it rocketed away, and actually that's my elevator down there. So, yeah, kind of cool that it actually works. So right now I've just been using this stack of boxes, and it's kind of cool how you can rotate like all of the blocks, including the stylish blocks. And then right here, we actually have a windmill, which is set on the exact same thing, where it's just one event that rotates at 180 degrees. I changed its speed to be a little bit slower, and I actually originally had it at a loop function, which would make it rotate over and over and over again. But it seems like it has a little bit of issues dealing with rotation. I think also right now, our windmill might actually be wind-powered. Not really wind-powered, but I think it might be rotating at such a speed where the physics and weight of the wood on each end is actually rotating itself manually, because I'm not sure if I disconnected all this stuff, if it would actually stop. Now, this thing I'm actually quite proud of. This was a lot of fun to actually make, because there was so many different iterations of it where it's just so fun to tinker with stuff and try to figure out what works and how to make things, you know, work out properly. So I've got a little bit of a floating house up there. I don't have it connected to the tree or anything like that, because although there is a crouch button, you do still fall off the ledge, no problem. I think it would be great if they would eventually add a proper crouching, like shift walking in Minecraft. That would be fantastic for a game like this, but it is a dolly system. So if we come into here, close the button, and you're gonna see, like, this is just a mess. It's a big old mess of things. And I'm gonna actually right click on the tires at the top, because those are the only ones that are rotating us. These ones right here are actually just to keep us stable as we go across. And I do have this going at quite a high speed, so it's not necessarily a comfortable ride, but it does get us there in a jiffy. And it's really cool that you can actually end up doing stuff like this. Bang! And like, you can imagine the potential where you can actually have this build all the way out somewhere, and then you could set up with the same button configuration, maybe even a sensor, because they do have sensors that detect up to 10 blocks away, and as you walk in front of this thing, it will automatically trigger the switch. So you could imagine that you could actually have a pulley system, and let's just say right here, we had a sensor set up where it would lock us in place, and then maybe the trail or track itself would kind of rotate 90 degrees or 80 degrees or any type of degree, and just start pushing us in that direction as well. Now, as far as building angled objects is concerned, I'll show you all that in a little bit, but it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit tricky. Because right now you can only rotate things in 90-degree angles. And it works for the most part. You know, it doesn't let things... Turn the radio on. Hello, other ducky. And here's my little washroom, by the way. Kind of gross. There's the controller for all these doors and everything like that. Very, very cool. Very, very intuitive. Although I don't necessarily have any switches or anything to bring my lift back. So if things end up going south, unfortunately, I usually end up constructing a very ugly platform up to my house just so I can go and grab this thing and bring it back down. Turn off. There we go. So now we're gonna go back down to the bottom. I'm gonna show you some of the more complex things that you can do, although I wouldn't necessarily call it complex because, again, I am not particularly good at this type of building. I just like messing around with stuff. But I want to show you this vehicle right here, which was kind of inspired by, again, some of the Steam videos, because they do show that you can actually make vehicles with functioning legs. However, mine does not necessarily have functioning legs. These are just on a rotation, and it's just a couple arms. So it kind of works, but not really. And, of course, thrusters we're not really going to touch today, but thrusters are self-explanatory, where you can actually make flying machines and rockets and stuff like that. It's very, very cool. So before we get into this stuff, I just want to show you this very, very quickly. Oh, whoops. I just want to show you how you can actually make something build at an angle. So if we do something like this, throw down a piece of metal right here. Actually, no, we got to throw down a bearing first. Throw down a piece of metal. And let's just drag it up to here, let's say. And then put another bearing here. Another bearing here. And then let's actually drag... Oh, whoops. Got to get my rotations right. And let's actually drag this out to about here. You can see that it's just going to start falling on its own right now. Of course, it's actually swiveling the bottom of it, and that is because none of these are connected to a controller or anything like that. So let's actually grab ourselves a button as well as a controller. Throw the button on the ground. Throw the controller next to it. And the thing that's so cool about these buttons and controllers is they don't necessarily have to always be connected to like the build itself. Engines are the only thing where if you want it to actually like interact with something, like what I mean by that is we can't have an engine over here and have it power this. We would have to have the engine connected to the build in order to actually power it, as opposed to the switches and controllers that actually work no problem. Now, as you're gonna see right here, also, I just wanted to mention this too, the visual cue where this is actually 1, this is 2, this is 3, 1, 2, 3. So we can actually set it so that this thing is going to rotate, let's say 180 degrees. And then these right here, this is the starting position. So if we actually set this to 15 and minus 15, because they're both opposite of one another, you can see that we actually turn these onto a slant. And you can actually do that with all types of different angles. You can have all sorts of different things. Like, let's see right here, 45 degree, and there's a 15. And it's actually very, very cool where even though it's angled, you can still build on it. And then, of course, you could have things built at an angle. One of the things that I wanted to experiment with was the track up there. I at the time only knew that I could have it at a straight angle, but of course for something like this, let's actually grab the same thing that I used as the track right here. You can see that you can easily have stuff at an angle. So we could, well, it's not necessarily easy, especially building something in the sky because we can't really fly or anything like that, but you could end up setting up like a bunch of tracks that would go up and down and stuff like that. It's very, very cool. You could set up a real gondola that would actually take you up to the top of a mountain. I'm not exactly sure how, yeah, that would actually be very complicated to make because you'd have to make the wheels that are attached to the gondola at an angle while the cart itself would have to be straight, kind of like the function that we have right here. And of course, if we turn on the button, it's going to start rotating, but of course it only rotated once, so let's actually slow that down, put it on an endless loop, and then now it's kind of opposite. I guess that's just kind of how the buttons work, and you can see that we could end up having a bit of a radar dish. Why is this not rotating at infinite? Oh, now it is. Okay, that was weird. So I guess it had to go back into its default position before it would end up turning on. And this is essentially what I had set up for the windmill up there anyway, so no problem. And then over here, you can kind of see, this is kind of neat. I'm just going to show you a couple more things here because I know we're going a little bit over time. You can actually set up very cool switches and stuff like this where you can chain events one after the other. And I mean, I just see this and I just think secret staircase. That would be really, really cool. And then over here, I was experimenting. This is the only way that I can figure out how to do this. I'm sure other people that are a little bit more inclined with this type of technology and stuff would be able to figure it out. But I actually have a secret door. And the only way that I can figure out how to have this work is I actually have the controller only controlling one axis, and then these other two bearings I just left completely untouched so that the physics will actually have them rotate back in place when the door actually lifts and drops back down. As you can see though, it's not necessarily flush where it ends up kind of being at a bit of an angle. Now this of course could end up being the exact same setup for doors that would open sideways, for doors that would open downward and stuff like that. Very, very cool stuff. But this is the only way that I can see to make something kind of give the illusion that it's shifting or moving in one direction, because as far as I know, there's not really any conveyor belts or anything like that, even though they do show some of that stuff in the Steam videos, which is kind of weird. So anyway, the other thing too, one last thing I do want to mention is unless you make this a private world, of course, all your friends that do have this game are going to be able to just join in, no problem. And there are no restrictions on whether or not they can delete stuff. And again, you cannot manually save the game because it seems to just kind of auto-save anyway, which is a bit disappointing, especially because you could end up making a big mistake. And you can very easily end up destroying a build and there's no undo button, so it's kind of tricky, man. So anyway, that's it for Scrap, what is this? I always forget the name. Scrap Engineers or Scrap Metalists or I don't know. Sorry, I don't really remember the name. It's one of those titles that's extremely forgettable for my own sake. It's a good enough title. It's just kind of forgettable. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this first look. I know we went a little bit over time, but of course, this is a very complex game, and I wanted to kind of show you the basics of how everything works so that you can decide whether or not you want to actually purchase this game for yourself. Of course, I do have links in the description. I may end up making a couple more videos just as I mess with this game a little bit more in my own personal time. But otherwise, I'm not planning to make like a big Let's Play series out of it or anything like that, just to kind of mess around because I actually really like just spending my own personal time on games like this. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Do not forget, if you did enjoy the video, to Hadouken the like button for me, share, favorite, and subscribe to join Team Pixel. Sayonara. Let's bring out our hammer, get the hammer on, and well, that was unepic. Stay epic, everybody.